All right, so I recorded a whole first part, which I may or may not post, but it was more all over the place. I don't know if anybody gives a shit. I'll probably post it. Don't have to watch it. I'll label it as part one. Part two, men are fucking weak. And, there's been this whole debate about femininity and, women rising to power and the patriarchy, which I have pretty strong opinions on. But I believe it's kind of a catch-22 or chicken or the egg scenario, right? But men need to take responsibility for causing this. It is our fucking God-given biological responsibility, whatever you want to call it, to set the record straight. And it doesn't start with changing women. It starts with changing men. And we have a responsibility to set the tone. And whether you want to say biblically or not, I don't care about that as much. But I believe it's our right to almost, historically, men have died fighting wars and providing the tone of a culture, and it is their responsibility to sacrifice themselves. And if you believe in the Bible, you probably align with that a lot more, but it's my opinion and my belief that men need to take responsibility first. The masculine needs to set the tone for the feminine. If you go back to Taoist methodology, it's the same, right? The feminine is adaptable, it's flexible. The masculine, the yang side, is much more static. It's a force, it's a rock. And men need to understand the force that they put out in the world, whether it's pathetic, flawless, snowflake force. Of course, women had to step up and take more of a masculine role. And it's unfortunate. There's so many moms out there that are single moms, rather, that are filling both roles. And there's this emptiness in them. And it kind of over time has developed a sense of femininity to transform into masculinity. And I think that's a big issue. And the problem is men are blaming women. And there's this counter argument with men that, well, I can't find women because they're all masculine. Well, that's your problem. That's something you created as a man. I truly feel that if you fill your role as a man, then you will begin to let a woman lower her guard and allow her to embrace her feminine side. Of course, we all have a feminine side. That is the natural balance of things. Men typically tend to repress it and express their masculine side, and women biologically express their feminine side, or at least are supposed to. Society has influenced us to become more homogenous in this. And it's like you can't really tell men from women, to the point where now physically you can't tell men from women. And I think that is a result of, you didn't have this gender identity problem millennia ago. It is a new issue, right? And it's societal influence started by men. Whether or not men actually started it technically doesn't matter. Men need to take responsibility. And I think intellectual laziness, work ethic, all belong to the domain of men. Well, now they do anyway, the laziness. Men need to step up, and y'all motherfuckers need to step up. Stop being weak. Stop being weak. And I'm not the first person to say that I don't have a sentimental side. I do. I have a really big sentimental side. I think I have a big heart, and I feel it. It's there. I care a lot for a lot of things. I like to protect the innocent. It hits me fairly deeply when I see, the innocent harmed or hurt or threatened, and to the point where I feel the calling to protect them. And I think that is part of growing as a masculine figure, is realizing that you do have that feminine side. There's still a lot of pseudo masculinity where they think the feminine side should be totally rejected. I don't feel like that's the case. The reality is that you have to embrace that in order to empower the masculine side and fight for a cause. And that cause needs to be driven by the internal side. So, this leads to a bigger discussion. Why have men lowered their standards in what they hold for themselves? And it has always been my life mission, at least one of them. I have plenty of them. I have plenty of things that I wish to see change in, but it has always been my mission for people to create a community in which there are shared values and a code they must abide to, above their own individuality. A set of rules that, that used to exist, that forged men from kids. And now we have a bunch of grown man children who, seriously, there's people in professional roles, therapists, coaches, any life coaches that, sure, they'll give you all the advice in the world about how to, better yourself, but they don't know how to cook a meal for themselves. They don't know how to clean their house. They don't know how to be responsible for their own actions. And they don't know how to wake up on time. They don't know how to fulfill their obligation as a man. They're undisciplined. So it's funny that we're saturated with coaching to the point where none of these coaches even fucking matter anymore. It's like everybody can become a coach for everything, but they haven't displayed the attributes of what I consider a real coach. I've had the opportunity and the fortune, I guess, if you want to call it, the fortunate outcomes of having mentors, and in capacities of professional, financial, masculinity, responsibility. Because when I was 18 years old, I was basically a man child. Physically, I was a man, but emotionally, spiritually, in every capacity, actually, still very much a child. And I had to be forged into my masculinity. And it sucks. I'll be the first to tell you, like, you have a duty as a man. You have a responsibility. And, like, resorting to dating apps, I hate it. I think it's the most pathetic, stupid, ridiculous way to find a partner. It goes back to this superficial, is she hot, is she not? Or, it does highlight, of course, a lot of the biology is women have all this selection and men have to, strive and make themselves stand out. But now you only have to stand out physically. What's in your head doesn't even fucking matter anymore. Are you hot to them or not? It doesn't matter what you say, if you're 6 feet tall or not, but biologically, women at least, want a man who can fill a role more so than they're even physically attracted. So men have gotten so weak that at least they've settled on men that look like they're more capable of providing. Oh, well, they got to be big, they got to be strong, they got to be, of course they all say smart, funny, intelligent, on the surface, but the reality is that I've seen much taller men get much better results, even ones that are less attractive, facially. And it's anyway, let me digress. The dating apps has weakened men significantly. Men are designed to face rejection. That is part of our process. It is designed to be resilient, to be told like no, and push that. And I hate these guys and I say hate loosely. I don't really hate them, but I hate what the messages, right? I think Andrew Tate is a good example. I think he's got some good messages, but ultimately it's like, subscribe to my academy to learn how to be a fucking man. Like, why do people have to pay to learn something now? Why can't you just be giving and just actually contribute to society? And people are putting money ahead of change. And change is far more important. Abiding by a code of honor instead of this guilt culture that we live in to create us into feeling guilty about shit, and instead following a set of principles derived from reason, right? And it's a tricky line, because you don't want to derive a set of principles that lead you into a cult. But you do want to derive a collective shared sense of principles that influence society enough. Not one individual can do it. And I find a lot of men have settled into, I don't want to call it complacent because it sounds insulting, but, stop and smell the roses and enjoy your life. And then you see all the conflicts occur in the relationship. It's hard for me to say this, but it's the truth. And in the moment, of course, I'm in denial because, I've still got a lot of emotional shit that I'm working through from many, many years of conditioning in the wrong way. I didn't have necessarily the best examples of masculinity and femininity in my youth. My mom had to take a pretty strong masculine role, not the fault of my father at all, for different reasons, right? My dad just had a lot of things that he had to work through, and biologically, and he was incapacitated in ways that he couldn't necessarily always fill that role. So I have a lot of sympathy for him. But anyway, we have to get to the point where we need to make and influence ourselves to follow that specific set of rules, reason as a group, and say, you know what, this is gonna cause the societal change, and it is not necessarily about choosing yourself, right? The things that make you better. I think that the whole industry of personal development is silly, and I think it's much more about surrendering pieces of your individuality to come to a collective sense of changing things in a manner that allows things to come to fruition, using your own reasoning and going, you know what, here are the things that make the most sense. Can this code be applied to every circumstance? What is the truth behind it? What are the things that you can look through all throughout history and see that has created, and not the negative things of history or the primitive or the twisted parts of history, but the things that have created societies in which they've been functional. And whether or not they've been conquered is a whole different thing. That's militaristic and not necessarily cultural. But how did those societies have such stronger bonds? The United States is one of the weakest bond culture possible. I'll go into a coffee shop and I'll sit next to somebody, do some work, and I'll usually say good morning or how you doing, you mind if I sit here? I just don't want to invade people's personal space, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to sit down next to you and say nothing. That's awkward as fuck. And I'll say something like, hey, good morning. And they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. And they all put their headphones in. They don't even want to communicate anymore. And this is what makes me miss like the early 2000s and the 90s. Was like, there was no headphones. There was no cell phones. It was like the actual interaction was happening in person. And that in itself, the forging of the masculinity comes from the rejection. It comes from, and that's biologically wired. And I think that's really repressed a lot of femininity because women now have to go and approach men. And I think that, is the masculine role, and that starts trickling over. Anyway, going back to what I said, I just now remembered. I said it's hard for me to admit this because in the midst of conflict, there is the masculine desire to win. I'm very competitive by nature. And so, it's like, I want to really prove my point. So 90% of my conflicts with my wife are caused, I have to accept responsibility. They're caused by me. And they're caused by me generally not filling a role. And my wife has to step into that role. Granted, I'm not in the house a lot, and I'm not around a lot. I've got a lot of stuff to do. I'm trying to fill the provider portion of that more than the partner portion of that. Relationships have always been a struggle for me. I just don't fundamentally understand a lot of aspects of relationships. It's a struggle, and for me, it's like I kind of jump to this sense of, why is that necessary? And why is that important? Is that important for everyone? And the answer is no, but I still struggle with that. But anyway, they're caused by me, and I have to own my part in that. And I think what's really critical is that whether or not I started it is less important than me actually taking responsibility and seeing what influence I have for it, and even risking the sense of that effort is going to be rejected or not seen, and accepting that. And there's a pussified part of me that still wants the validation and recognition from my wife for the the efforts. The reality is I need to provide that to myself as a man. And Sure, I think it's nice to have, and I don't think it should be absent, but I think that your sense of value, both as a man and woman, should come from yourself. And I think women would naturally prefer to be treated like a queen. And in a way, the man must emotionally heal to the woman and provide not only in the financial sense, but provide in the sense of security, stability. And we're not able to do that because the man children that are all around, and the man children that never really see why the hell they need to grow up, because they've created their own sense of code, right? It's like, well, I'm an expert in this domain, and this is why I've got kind of moved away from the whole personality community in general, is because too many people are justifying their type as an excuse. It's an excuse for you to not step up into your sex and the role of your gender. And I know a lot of people disagree with that, but the homogenous shit is a cancer to our society, in my opinion. There is no beauty in contrast. I've stressed this before. The imperfections of contrast is what creates the dual experience. On a spiritual level, much higher, meta-spiritually, there's a non-dual place. And I don't want to talk about how I've gotten there, but I do want to say there's a non-dual place, and that's why existence exists in itself, right? The reason why we experience is because duality is the only way we can experience. And the experience comes from opposites and contrast. And so as we're trying to make this effort to make everything homogenous, it takes the beauty away. And this is why I've denied the traditional concept of heaven, because it's supposed to be all perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. I mean, you can have technical perfection in the sense that at least how we understand it is perfection. And I think AI will hit a point where logically it's the most efficient way, but I still don't think it's perfect. Infinite possibilities, whatever. I digress from that point too. But anyway, my main point is that men need to be out there and really get into the aspect of trying to embrace masculinity and being more of a masculine male, and embracing that side, and also looking at inward and going, there is a feminine side. That's where the masculinity spawns from. And I think that's absolutely critical in becoming much more of a place where women feel comfortable embracing their femininity, to the point where I think unconsciously they don't even know they're doing that. They might write themselves off as a kind of a more masculine person. But then you see these masculine women still leaning on traditionally more feminine things, like there's still a love for pink, or the sparkle or whatever else that's traditionally feminine, and they still wear dresses, and they still wear skirts, and they still there's little hints that they want to be a woman, and yet when you talk to them, they shake your hand like a man. And they want to show you confidence, and they want to show you that they're confident, and they're and at some point they start approaching men because men are too scared. As a man, you should get off the dating apps. You should get off. You're gonna get you don't feel the sense of rejection on a dating app. You just don't. You feel the sense of, you do get the sense that women are rejecting you, and in the sense that they may not respond to your message, but it's a lot weaker than being told no to your face, and learning how to either A, overcome that in a respectful way, or B, accepting their boundary and moving the fuck on. And I think that there's a line there, of course, where you can move into the line of disrespect, which again goes back to a code, right? What is the method that can be applied in almost every circumstance where you can still hold dignity and accept that someone has set a boundary? And I'm not going to dive into what my code is per se, but I do think there should be collective identities. I'm less inclined to say massively large groups. I am more inclined to say large groups, and large groups subscribing to a collective ideology which influences change. My thoughts, my ramblings, probably not. right? I don't even know if fucking anybody wants to watch this shit, to be honest. I'm sure it's been repeated by every fucking TikToker that actually has some sense of reasoning, but I do think that it is important to stop using excuses, step into your role, stop being a lazy piece of shit eating pizza rolls in your basement. We've been numbed as men, playing video games, getting our sense of dopamine, getting a fucking Fortnite, what do they call it, the winner of the battle royale or whatever, and that's where the dopamine comes from. You got to stop the infinite scrolling, and I'm guilty of doing this myself. And then I stop myself and going, "What in the actual fuck am I doing?" Like my brain cells are fucking rotting. And this goes back to AI. Like we're using AI in a way that we're not enhancing our intellect, but we're becoming intellectually lazy. And so we make this practice of well, at least my family does, practice of it. Think through it first. What do you actually think? And then there's my own curiosity, like, what is the answer to that? And it's usually factual based. Like, I'd rather research facts through ChatGPT or Grok or whatever than go scour the internet for 20 hours. But there is this attempt to reason by observation and go, okay, well, if you apply this, then you must be able to apply it at the search for truth, right? I could be wrong in all this shit. Maybe I'm outdated. Maybe I'm old school, but I don't think I am. I look around and I see what's right in front of your face. I see why so many men are struggling. I see why so many men experience this inner turmoil, and it's hard to get it out of them because they don't feel vulnerable anymore. They haven't embraced necessarily their feminine side, or they've totally accepted the way they are. They don't make an effort. They don't want to put themselves out there. They write themselves off as unattractive. There's a specific individual I think of that would go as far as reconfiguring his fucking face through plastic surgery at a young age because he thinks that, that's the reason why he's getting rejected, or that's the reason why how he can create more influence. And I'm like, dude, you have made such an ideological stretch. Like, fucking comb your hair. Like, try with your appearance, wear better clothes, and stand out. In a way, you got a peacock. I mean, like, not to the point of boasting. There's definitely a need for humility, but to the point of like, yeah, you got make your footprint. Purpose-driven men, and again, a collective purpose, one that you subscribe to in not a dangerous way, but one that you subscribe to where others hold you accountable because they feel the same way. Not one that you create yourself as an individual and then just live your life. Get people out of your way. It's more of like, dude, we're a very social community. We're a very social community. We're meant to be in communities. That was kind of a weird way to phrase that, but we're meant to be in communities. We're a communal species, and we're meant to be in groups. And this is why I guess in a lot of ways I idealize some of these ancient cultures, the samurai, the Spartans. Yes, there was a lot of homoeroticism in the Spartan culture, which I don't subscribe to, or even pedophilia in a lot of ways, or grooming, but there are things that stand out to me as things that are very valuable in learning in a cultural sense, that they all subscribe to the same philosophy. Death is far better than shame. And, I think that is a big part of the military that sort of exists, even though they're getting pussified in a lot of ways too. Not that, I think that's where you're going to find the strongest concentration of semi-masculine men, though. There's a lot of them that I can think of off the top of their head that seem to have much more of a balance of being a provider, protector, and embracing, again, there's a feminine side and not overcompensating. And then there's the ones that obviously clearly have something wrong with them. So I'm still proud of the military in a lot of ways. I think it's important, but I feel a lot of sense. These are the things that sit on my mind a lot. There's this fire that burns, right? It's like, you've got to make some kind of difference, and I can't do it alone. I don't want to charge for community to help people. There's other ways to make money that, you provide any sense of real value to the world, and through the standard means of capitalism, products that actually add value. Consumerism in some ways can add value, right? I like my damn coffee in the morning sometimes, and sometimes I make my own coffee, and sometimes I'm like, you know what, I want something different, and I'm willing to do that. I buy nice cars not to be flashy, but I enjoy the experience. Like this Corvette I'm in right now, it's not the fastest Corvette. It's a Z06. I bought it for the engine and the sound, the experience. They've got a faster model now, the ZR1, and it's the fastest one, but I don't really have an interest in that. It's not always about being the best and having the best car. It's about what gives you the thrill, what gives you the experience. Now, I like the body on it, don't get me wrong, it looks cool. But at the end of the day, this sounds better. And the sound is a big part of that exhilarating. Nothing gets my heart pumping like that, right? It's like, oh my God, this is fun. And knowing that you could fuck up the driving and you could easily just make your life a living hell. And living on edge like that just brings your attention to the present moment, to the point where you're like, dude, in a way you're facing rejection in itself, your lack of skill in something. And I think that's also really valuable. And it's like people don't put themselves out there. So long story short, fucking grab your nuts and start being a man. Make it easier on women to step into their femininity, and you'll find the dating pool gets much bigger. You'll find that the dating pool becomes significantly larger because you can't do it alone, but you'll find it becomes significantly larger, and women will be able to actually see what you can do for them more than your appearance. I don't think I'm a super attractive guy. I think I'm okay. But, I've been fortunate in having a great woman in my life, and it's because of what I provide. And I think that's far more attractive to women than, being a man-child, but looking like whatever celebrity women think is attractive these days. And, I've got imperfections all over me. And, like, at least physically, mentally, emotionally, but I think my strengths outweigh those imperfections, and embracing that and going, okay, I can continue to work on these things, but the sense of working on them, because why? The shame, embarrassment, and the sense of a cultural identity, right? My closest friends, I make fun of them. I give them a sense of shame and push them. And the reason why I do that is because there's a collective ideology that we share, and I hold them accountable. And in the same way that I wish to be challenged if I'm missing something. And I think that's all where it's at. It's the change we can make by focusing on ourselves and creating value for ourselves. So anyway, this was a long ramble. I don't want to sit in here and talk all day. I could, but monologuing to myself isn't always the most fun thing to do. I'm going to post this. Fuck editing. Fuck all the fancy filters. This is raw. This is who I am. And yeah, I don't speak perfect at all times, especially in a monologue. And this fucking editing and making yourself appear much more attractive, or fucking marketing so that way your videos are gonna capture someone in 3 fucking seconds, none of that matters. What matters is the message, right? And I'm tired of it. Fucking tired of it. I'm tired of people fucking trying to make money before change. Change will lead to money if you do the right thing. And I remember Jim Rohn saying this, right? It's like, you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And I think that's very valuable. What do people want? Well, I know that women want providers and security and masculine men, and someone that can help them get out of the masculine role. And I guarantee you we're going to have more happiness as a culture. My biggest sense of shame is where I fail in my masculine capacity. And I'm like, all right, at this point in time, I have to hold myself accountable because the groups of men have weakened so much. And I've gone on meetup.com. I've tried to form some of these groups, but ultimately there's not a lot of subscription to creating a collective code. It's like, well, everybody's entitled to their own fucking opinion, and we're so individualistic that there's like no compromise. They don't really want to be held accountable. They want to justify their actions. They want to justify their failures, and in a sense, they think they're living a perfect life. But they're not influencing change. And most importantly, they're struggling in the realm of dating, which I think is the entire point of our existence, is to propagate. Be fruitful and multiply, they say. So I'm happy that I have a daughter that I love very much, and hopefully I'll have another kid. I think she's a feisty one, and I'm proud of her for being able to set strong boundaries. And I think boundaries are important for both sexes. And men need to respect those boundaries, and women need to be able to set them in the most feminine way. And there's women I can think of, aside from my wife, that I've been impressed with how they set it. And there's others that I'm like, you're compromising, you're settling. And so I encourage women to keep being high in their standards, women setting the bar, and men attempting to strive to reach the bar. I encourage women to do that. And they say they want a man that, is able to give them a sense of peace, or allow them to step into more of a feminine nature. And that doesn't mean these traditional gender roles in the home. That means the way they approach life. I'm not saying women should do dishes and be barefoot in the kitchen while pregnant or anything like that. I think it's more in the sense of like allowing them to express individuality, which I think that is the key to humanity. And that's how we're going to pass this AI phase. That's how we're going to keep our role in society. That's how we're going to keep our existence relevant, is the humanities, the imperfections. That is the nature of experience, is imperfection. And so AI will be far more perfect in every way. But as long as we're able to contribute to art because of the imperfections, and to see one's imperfections in life experience, the failures they experience, that is how we are going to survive as a species. Because I think at some point AI will be intelligent enough to see that the deviation actually allows humanity to continue existing, because there's a huge risk. We have a great cost on the world around us. But there's a nature and artistic expression that AI will never be able to duplicate. AI won't suffer. It probably will never experience emotions. It can fake emotions. But what I see actually happening is that men will start dating AI bots. And I've already seen that in the sense of the youth. There's a lot of apps I get advertised to on Facebook. It's like, create your perfect AI girlfriend. It's like, dude. Dude, the fact that so many fucking people are paying for this, that these services keep popping up because there's so much money in it. There's so much money in it. People will pay to feel validated. Men will pay in vast degrees to feel validated, so much that these companies keep forming. It's not that these companies are fucking broke and there's no money in it. There's tons of money in it. And, there's a shame in it. There's a shame that people are paying for these platforms in crypto, and most of them have crypto, or they move crypto to hide their shame. And, I've gone on these apps and I've wanted to see how and what it provides, and it's disgusting. It is disgusting there's just validation, and there's no conflict. And, you can pick the type of woman you want. And what I feel is happening is men are picking more submissive and validating settings than being challenged, unless the men have some fetish of being put into chokeholds or some shit. Oh man, AI is really fucking my head up. And it scares the shit out of me that we're all subscribing to this. We should see these fucking services disappear. We should see these things start vanishing because they're embarrassing, and the shame that we should be putting on men as a culture and a series of community or communal ideas. So I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed in men. Fucking pussified bastards. Of course I have my flaws, and I'm disappointed in myself, and I feel a great sense of shame. But the fact that I have to imply the own shame to myself and go, you know what, fucking asshole, do what you're supposed to do, and there's going to be less shame. It's like I hold myself to my own code, and I attempt to hold others to a code, but they wind up going, fuck you. My justifications for my attitude and the way that I approach it are better and more individualistic and make me feel a sense of peace, which is a lie, by the way, because I exposed them and they don't like that. I exposed the shit out of them, and I go, well, here's what you told me the other day, and then the stuttering happens. Well, yeah, your shit doesn't line up. So then they don't like me. They don't like me at all. And I just laugh it off because I don't give a shit. It's like there's somebody out there, there's people out there, and like I said, I tried the meetup groups, I tried all the shit. I try to meet people, and I immediately jump. This is my problem, by the way. I care less about the person, the individual. It's like, oh yeah, you got to connect. I'm more interested in their ideas, their values, their set of collective principles, or the absence of such, and are they receptive to those values? And if they're the opposing values, I will challenge them. I will ask a lot of questions so I get a good understanding, and then I'll start pushing and poking holes in it. And hopefully that makes, if they're open-minded enough, they start changing. And that is what I have been doing, and I think it's kind of working, but there needs to be more people. If you like this message, subscribe, like, comment. If you want to communicate with me directly, I'm open to that. I'll shoot you my phone number. We can have a quick conversation. Obviously, I don't have time all day to communicate with everybody, but if we vibe in the sense that you're interested in what I'm talking about, then let's talk. If you think I'm an asshole, you can talk. We can talk still. If you disagree, we can still talk. I think that discourse leads to better things. So, plenty of opportunity. I'm open. I'm open for discussion. Ideally, Texas would be great, so that way we can actually see each other face to face. But look, I'm open to anybody. So, let's talk. I'm looking forward to it.